So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our pre-board meeting agenda review. We are, as I always mention, live currently, so please speak into your microphones clearly and articulate slowly. Just so everyone is aware, we currently have a live mic and one member who is remote, that is Mr. Consemi. Good evening, Mr. Consemi. Good evening, Mark. Thank you. So he is there. Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. I'm doing pretty well. Good to see you on the screen. We do have an aggressive hour and 15 minutes before the voting meeting to get through capital projects. Actually, hard to believe, but the quickest agenda item is the budget, because we're going to make our final recommendation for you to vote on tonight. An agenda review with very little to any changes from our review. At 7 o'clock, we do have a voting meeting. And my members of the board, one executive item topic this evening, and I will get into the reason at the conclusion of the meeting. Without further ado, we are going to present our capital projects update. We have a little different format for you. We're saving some paper and some slides. But I want to once again introduce the team. You know the principal from CPL, Brian Trott. Lauren Blass is from CPL. She is top-notch in her work. You'll hear from her in a moment. Of course, there's Everybody Loves Stu and Bill Zagrafis. Also, Chris Drinking Fountain Dowling and Tony Maselli that everybody knows. And I hopefully want to have some time in this pre-agenda meeting, if not during the meeting, to talk about school safety. And we have our safety chief here with us, Chief Del Porto. So I want to talk a little bit about safety this evening, either in the pre-meeting or during the meeting, as well as during capital projects. So let's move forward. And Ray, if you would just go, we're going to go with one slide tonight. But this one slide, and if you could enlarge it, really encompasses everything. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that we are now under a new project labor agreement. Everything that we're doing will be done through a project labor agreement. It's now in effect since you've passed it. All of the trade unions have signed it, and we believe in union labor. They are our parents. They are our community members. They do good work. They deliver on time. They have an impeccable safety record, and we're always able to get our alternates in here. So before we move to the first project, I want to tell you, Chris Drinking Fountain Dowling has been watching the bottle fillers and the bubblers, and if you slide just across, we have a contract with MLP, right? 38 bottle fillers have been installed. Chris, we have 6 remaining. Is that correct? Where, why, and when will they be done? Speak loud and jump up.
We're just finalizing the locations for the last couple during fountains. We had a couple that required some more work at Bond and Niagara on Niagara Street, Hyde Park.
Okay.
So those took a little extra time. We're just figuring out how much money we have left to decide how many final drink fountains we have and which locations they're going to go.
Okay, we have the ability to install up to 6 more. Bond and Hyde Park would be the 2 schools of choice to install them. And that will then close out phase 3, thank you, Becky, of that former capital project. That was the $55 million one. So you will see another payment application, not this month, but soon for MLP. And that's it for that phase. Now, the next part of capital, well, before I get to it, the next thing is that the Hyde Park School playground, the equipment has been ordered. The design has been laid out. I'm looking at Bill here for help. The bollards and safety protections are ready. The new fencing has been ordered. The driveway will be blacktopped, or what's left of it. I think Hyde Park, who doesn't have many parking spots, will lose 6 or 7 more of them, but the staff is aware of that, and they wanted it. The point about the Hyde Park playground is we will break ground on May 1st, and the children will have access on September 1st. Now, it won't take that long to do it, but we'll have some type of, as we did at Bond School, ribbon cutting officially. So it will be very similar to the playgrounds we've done. Once that playground is installed, every elementary school will then have a playground, and we've accomplished that for all of our schools. Groundbreaking May 1st, definitely done by the opening of school, if not sooner, but that's all in place. Bill, anything on that?
Hello, everyone. The shipment of the components will be here towards the end of April.
Great.
So we'll actually have all the equipment here prior to the groundbreaking.
The staff designed and selected, along with our architects, the equipment. So it was staff-driven. It's appropriate for Hyde Park School. The safety precautions you asked for will be in place, and we're right on schedule to complete our final playground. Thank you.
Great.
Next, I want to point out, if you look at the way we broke this grid up, between Hyde Park Playground and the air handlers at Niagara Falls High School, those are all being paid for by American Rescue Funds. I want to make sure that you are aware of that. The funding for everything we're now going to talk about comes from our American Rescue Fund pot of money. Before I ask Stu and Lauren to jump in here, I want you to know that here is the pressure point for this. All of those heat pumps, boilers, chillers, cooling towers, air handlers must be installed, completed, paid for by August 31st, 2024. Okay? That is a tight window. It's a window that they have to stick to, because after September 30th, 2024, we no longer have access to that money. So that's why these are the priority of this team, and that's why these all, and Becky is the final arbiter for me on these, they all fall under the approval of American Rescue Funds, because they deal with air quality. They all deal with air quality in some regard. Now, I'm going to say one more thing, and then really I want to turn it over to Stu and Lauren here. What we have done in most of the cases is we've pre-purchased the equipment. Why did we do that? We have the money, first of all. We also have state ed approval now. And secondly, there is great lead time concern on this equipment. Oh, yeah. So we went ahead, held our breath, state ed came through, and we purchased the equipment. We have the approval. Now we need to talk about the installation. But I'd like Stu and Lauren to come forward, and could you talk a little bit about the companies and the plans, and come on up. This is Lauren. She has done a great job from CPL.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the design side and bidding side, and Stu is going to handle the construction and the various companies that we're working with to get these items purchased. So Calfas heat pump units, as we've said a couple times in the past, we're going to be replacing those outdoor units in addition to a couple of indoor units, and this entire project is currently out to bid right now. We're having a pre-bid walkthrough next Tuesday to get everyone on the same page in terms of, seeing what we're working with, and we're expecting any questions in the next couple of weeks, and our bids are due, I believe, on the 25th. So we're excited to see where this project goes. Stu, anything to add on the Calfas heat pumps in terms of delivery?
We're looking at delivery of the heat pump, the VRV replacements by the end of June, so we can get some of that work done this summer. So that's going to free us up where we won't have that labor crunch with the stadium taken off. The chillers are due to arrive the end of November. We're not going to take the other ones out until the new ones are here. The tower will be done before that. The rebuild of the cooling tower will be done as soon as it's shut down. The polymer coating that we have to use has a minimum 50-degree temperature that it needs to do the polymer coating. The air handlers, all that purchase is through the bid package. No real long leads, the air handlers, the motors, the coils, the drives. Drives are a little bit long, but we still have that within our reach. We had to get the chillers done over the winter because of the amount of stuff that goes on here or at the high school over the summertime. So we needed to get that done. So we picked up between 6 and 8 weeks on the lead times by pre-ordering the chillers. So that puts us in a better timeline to get it done over the winter of 23-24.
Russ had a question.
Elvis, what do we do so these heat pumps, I mean, we had all kinds of issues in the first 5-10 years ago, whatever it was. Do we move them?
I don't think we're gonna need to move them. So there's a couple things that we're doing. We're gonna be looking at the pipe routing to make sure that that was done in the most efficient fashion. So that's part of the scope. And there are a couple of units that we're going to be downsizing and consolidating to more efficient units to make sure that those new compressors are gonna be right-sized for the spaces. And also the models that we're using now are much more efficient and have come a long way from that first line of VRFs that was installed long ago. Not long ago, but
Right.
it was basically VRF's infancy, so I think they hadn't quite tuned it in yet.
Right, but the issue was the snow,
There were some issues with the stand.
the snow blew off the roof, blew onto the units and burned them out.
We now have big snow shields on all of those.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
Your recollection is very good, Mr. Petrosi.
Yeah.
And the stands have been upgraded.
Yes, yep.
So you're looking at some pre-bid stuff coming up, what you said, in the next few days or next few weeks?
Rebid Tuesday.
Pre-bid walkthrough on Tuesday.
Pre-bid Tuesday, cool.
Yeah, we're gonna start with a presentation at the high school, then walk the chiller room, the roof, the penthouses, trying to avoid Mr. Del Porto's training. And then we're gonna move down to Calfus, and walk that,
Good.
there, so give the contractors a chance to get their eyes on it.
Lauren, anything else about those other companies? I know that we're throwing company names out there, products, different products, Gordian, Equal, Stark.
Sure, I mean, the reason we went with all those companies is based on the product, not necessarily based on the lead time. We were able to work with all these companies, especially, the chiller was very important to us because we want to make sure we have the best product. Luckily, Stark is a large company and is able to work with this Equalis pre-purchasing program. So everything really worked out in terms of aligning the manufacturer with the ability to pre-purchase.
And for the board's expectation, you receive everything back on the 25th of April. You'll de-scope. The goal is, at the May 2nd meeting, we will have contracts for you. So on these items, that's the goal. That's why I'm telling you, we're showing you tonight. They're all out to bid. The walkthroughs will happen. 25th is the deadline. You'll need a day or two to de-scope these companies. And we plan to then have the contracts for the board at their May 2nd meeting. Any issue or question with pickups of, I know no one's had to send their bid in yet, but any issue about pickups, companies, what are you hearing there?
Reached out to several mechanicals and several electricians. Got some good positive response from them. Good looking project. They like the idea of the winter work. You know, Tony should know that. But it's a nice project. They like it. Heard one of them having a hon about the pre-purchase, but once I explained to him about the timing of the project, he understood that. So.
Just before we leave this section, unless there's board questions, just a few more seconds on the cooling tower and air handlers at Niagara Falls High School, because this is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, so we're totally redoing the entire chiller room from soup to nuts. We're doing new piping up to the cooling tower. The cooling tower is going to be refurbished. It's going to be, all the guts are taken out. We have new drives going in, new fans, new media, everything. And then the entire chiller room, we're going to be replacing it with modular chillers instead, so it gives us a little bit more capacity to turn the capacity down for shoulder days and whatnot. And then we're gonna be taking all of that piping and reconnecting it back at the risers to the rest of the distribution. And in addition, we're also doing the air handling coils and the fan motors. So those are kind of little bits and pieces here and there. The bulk of the work is in the chiller room, and it's gonna be brand new and very shiny.
Anybody that's listening, and we have had problems, let's not sugarcoat it. We've had problems for years in some of the rooms there. Don't forget, those were installed in 1999. We're talking 24, 25 years. So it's been a while. I'd like to move on to the next section unless there's questions there. Thank you, Lauren and Stu. Ray, you can scroll up. But this is where Bill Zagrafis jumps in, and we'll come back to Lauren and Stu in a moment. The fire shutters, you know there are 4 sets of fire shutters there, Bill?
Correct. There are 4 sets of fire shutters. There's a 5th at the stage. That one is remaining. So the 4 fire shutters that are on the 1st and 2nd floor, 2 each, around the library are being replaced with what we call man doors that will be on hold opens.
Right. May I say that in the top package, that's about $8.9 million estimate. We're not going to get too deep into that. Now, everything below the blue line is part of what the voters approved at 87%. Your next capital project, titled "A Breath of Fresh Air," coined by somebody at that table, and this of course is time sensitive, but we don't have the same time restraints that we have with the ARP. So we're not going to lollygag here, but that deadline is not as intense as the ARP deadline. Stu, Lauren, I'm sorry to make you come back up, but can you tell the board where we are and the community where we are with the air conditioning, the mechanicals at LaSalle and Gaskill? Remember, we approved this.
So we'll be installing a combination system at those schools. We're going to be doing a wall-mounted VRF system, so we'll have 1 or 2 units per classroom that has its own controls. In addition, we're going to be revamping and totally reconstructing the dedicated outdoor air units, the ventilation units in the basement. The vast majority of the components of those have never been replaced since they were constructed in the 30s. Bits and pieces have been done since then, and it's a really unique way to serve air to the classrooms, so we're going to be totally rebuilding those and using the existing ductwork that already is in the walls of the classrooms. In terms of a timeline on that, we're looking to go to the State Education Department early summer, late spring, so we can expect to be going to bid probably sometime in the fall once we get comments back from them. Anything to add?
The DOAS units she's referring to, they came from, I think they were World War I tank parts that they used to build those. They're old, they're pretty rough. The new ones, because of the constrictions, mostly at LaSalle, we're doing modular installs. So they're actually sectionals. They come in, you build them in place. And they're not a unit we're buying, dismantling, and putting back together. They're designed and manufactured to be installed that way.
And we'll be in good company with these units. We actually just went out to the Albright Knox Art Gallery last week to go take a look at this same manufacturer that has site-built these exact same units in the basement of the art gallery. So they're great quality, but they're actually a really good bang for your buck. So they're not like astronomically priced or anything either.
Great. That was, by the way, that was Stu's attempt at humor, just in case anybody missed that. About
Yeah, how'd that go?
Not well. Angelo was the only one splitting a gut over there. No one else really got it. No one else really picked up on it, Stu. So I'll try to clue them in when you're using humor. Again, this is going to go out to bid hopefully in the fall. I just want to make sure that the community, the schools, have an expectation that this is going to be a while, but we're going to move forward in as expedient way as we can. And I believe the holdup will be how fast we can get it through state ed. Just one aside, Brian, you can confirm this. You all remember this. You cannot go to state ed again and pay that extra money to get an expedited review. Remember that?
Yeah.
They've removed that option. So, you know, because we used to do it all the time because we got 98% reimbursement on it, and we got moved to the head of the class. That option no longer exists for expedited reviews. Moving on, I'd like to talk about security. Thank you, Stu and Lauren. We'll work on the humor, Stu, at the next meeting. Obviously, one of the hallmarks of this project are the secured vestibules, the technology, additional cameras, security expert, door fobs, contacts. So Brian, Bill, Chief Del Porto, Ray, Earl, when he decides to come to work, have a really big part of this. Earl Smeal, not Earl Bass, have a really big part of this. I know it's just so tragic to think and have this conversation based on what happened this week in Nashville. But we have to continue to move forward and do the best we can for our kids in our schools. So we are securing vestibules. We are able to get 3 off the ground right away. Administration, Calfus and LaSalle. It's not because I'm here that we picked those, or because I like the people at Calfus and LaSalle. They're the easiest ones to get done. They're the easiest designs. Is that right, Bill? Correct. And we wanted to get the low-hanging fruit, hate that term, done right away. So we wanted to get those into state ed, get it approved, get started on the work. That's why we put them up front. And then the balance of the vestibules, et cetera, will come forward. I wanted to ask the team to talk about a couple of things. First of all, Brian and Bill, could you talk about without getting into great detail, about the secured glass that we are putting in, both at the greeting window and around the first floor? Because we've had conversations, board members, about this. And again, without deep conversation, I want to make sure that the community and you all know that we are moving forward with this. Bill?
Right. So the glass that is going in is going to have a certain bullet resistance, we call it. There's no real such thing as bulletproof, for example. So what happens is if someone does shoot through it, the glass stays intact. Unfortunately, if someone did view what recently happened in Tennessee, the person shot the glass out and walked through. This film that goes on that prevents that from happening. And
we will put that on the window to the secretary, the pass-through windows?
It goes on every piece of glass that's within that vestibule, the outside doors, inside doors, any glazing that's adjacent to it.
And we're going to look to move that around the buildings as well.
Correct.
Yes. Yes. First floor locations, yes. Go ahead, Brian.
Pass-through window to the greeter.
The pass-through window to the greeter is a different type of glass. That is actually, that'll have a different level, like a level 2 glass. There are different levels of protection afforded with the UL label when it comes to bullet-resistant glazing. So that is a higher level of security.
To protect that
to protect the
man or
person
woman
during
who's
the
there.
Interaction at that time.
Ray, I would like you just to briefly explain security expert and what it is so that everyone knows. Oh, sorry, Nick.
What's the time frame on this? On this glazing for the windows, the protective shield? Is that kind of like next year, or is there any way we can move this up? Is what I'm trying to get at.
It has to go through SED for review. So those documents are going beginning of May to State Education Department for the remaining schools. The 3 buildings, Administration, Calfus, and LaSalle, are currently at SED. They've been there.
But due to the nature of the incidents that happened and what we're trying to do, is there any way to get this pushed ahead through SED? Do you have any contacts there or anything that we can do?
Unfortunately, it can't get pushed ahead at this point.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, but go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to suggest, though, Nick, one thing we could do is the window film is available on state contract. We don't need to bid that. We could secure pricing and a schedule from contractors, so as soon as it gets through state ed, the work could start. Yeah, that would get it in place probably 3 months earlier.
It would.
So,
It's almost like what we did with the chillers. We didn't really, well, simultaneously, we got state ed approval and we ordered the chillers. No, let me tell you why. Because the auditors, and this is ridiculous, auditors, are looking at the date we put the order in versus the date of state ed approval. Now, I'm willing to risk that too. But what we'll do, Brian, is just what you said. We'll put the order in off state contract, and then as soon as state ed puts it, we'll put it out to bid and install it, so that we don't have to wait for the whole vestibule system. The other thing, I'm telling you, the other thing, because I just told you that they removed the expedited review, is that we need to work with our elected officials to move the process forward in state education, because I just think, Earl Bass, of that joke that you tongue-in-cheek say, when we try to do something with smart schools, which was for security, you served 2 terms already by the time we got it passed. That is a legislative function, and we need to speak to our legislators about getting things passed faster for safety and security. So I think that Brian has an outstanding idea, but we also have to pressure our legislators to get this, these reviews
Well,
done faster.
I'm sure we're not the only school district going to be
We're
doing this
not.
too, so we have to.
We bring it
get
up all
going
the time,
yeah.
but in this case,
But
let's.
that's what I'm saying, in this
let's
case here, we have
prioritize
to
that.
really get started
Yep.
going on this.
Yep. Thank you for the question, Nick. Ray, what's security expert?
Security expert handles 2 things. First, it's a proxy card system we have now. It manages that, and the second piece, it will manage the 300 or so exterior doors. The real key behind security expert is it brings things into a comprehensive system. Video expert, which is security cameras. Now your proxy card entrance is under that system, as well as intrusion. So, for example, if a door is propped open anywhere, security expert and the intrusion piece will send out a shaming alarm. Some messaging will go out of the system, some lockdown doors, and cameras will be swung around in the general area, so we alert in several different ways. It's a comprehensive piece that really is the key that pulls it together.
It's a one-size, one-stop shop to control the cameras, the alarm, the door, the audible sound, and we attend to a door that's propped or open or swung open for too long.
Yes, sir, and alert the appropriate personnel.
And it also, like our Raptor system does, I get an alert, Maria gets an alert, Chief Del Porto gets an alert, the principal gets an alert. It'll work the same way, whoever we program in the district to get the alerts. That's what security and video expert are.
Yes, sir.
That is also in the longer-term package. I think that's everything in there, right, Ray? Fobs, everything?
Yeah, the only other piece is we had prep school and high school cameras all redone. Now we're going to cycle back and hit the elementary schools for blind spots in filler areas.
Right, just, yeah, I know you have a question, Tony, but just so you know, the high school and the prep school had an upgraded cameras and pan tilt zoom, what are those called, Ray? PTZs and everything like that. What Ray's asked the elementary principals to do is identify any blind spots or trouble spots that were not cameraed, and we will add cameras to those places.
my question is more of a request.
Microphone?
It's more of a request. Can we get, if we haven't already, can we get some picture models, not for the board, because we've seen some of the stuff that you guys have already, produced, but maybe we can get some of this information out to our constituents, out to our citizens, just so, because of the recent activities, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think we can get it into the.
we'll work with Mr. Laurie and provide something, whatever you like that, provide the community.
Kind of an example of how, what the secured vestibule is going to look like.
Yep. We won't necessarily do all 13, but we'll do 2 of them, 1 or 2 of them.
Like an example.
Yep. Yep.
I think if we do that, I think it should be just as generic as possible and not any type of specific school or building.
Right.
So, you know,
that's what I meant.
I'm just saying so like no one has
Right.
that information.
Right. Yeah, without a lot of detail, but the point is to assure people that we're on the move here to protection, and your point is well taken.
Like,
That's why I'm even being, thank you.
Do old LaSalle Senior.
Yeah, LaSalle Senior, Cayuga Drive School. We'll do Cayuga Drive School. I think it's not our school anymore.
Sugar Street.
Any other questions about security upgrades? We'll talk a little bit about security in a little bit with Chief. I'd like the Bill, Walk of Fame and Greenhouse, your specialties.
So, the Walk of Fame, we continue to develop the design that the board had approved. We continue to do construction documents on that and get that to SED at the same time, May 4th. The greenhouse, also we're working with a vendor for their design and see how that works. That's the vendor that had worked with the principal at Loniva Bond School and the staff there to kind of put together the program that they were looking for. So we continue to develop those contract documents so we can get those to SED for review also.
Thanks, Bill. Just so you know, on the greenhouse, again, a design aided by CPL, but created by the staff at Bond School. And we're getting a lot of real positive attention on being one of the first schools to build not around, but one of the first schools in this area to have a greenhouse of this size, where kids can grow food, where they can do things year round. So I'm excited about that. Just so you're aware, CPL is working with us. If you walk in the front of Niagara Falls High School, the gym, the theater area, etc., it was built in 1999. It looks like it was built in 1999. Many schools in this area are doing a lot of new branding, updating, logos, eye-popping things for kids. So high school is working with a company, and we're working with CPL to bring some new branding and some new eye-popping look to the PAC, outside area of the PAC, down the hall past the cafeteria, on those great poles, all the way to the gym. If you look at that gym, it looks like it was built in, the only thing I can think about is, it looks tired. It looks tired. That's the word that comes to my mind, tired. And we want it to pop for the kids. And it's just not, we get a lot of customers there, a lot of visitors. So that's what we're talking about, branding, colors, new trophy cases, showcases, things like that. It's just been the same way for 20-some years, and it's time to update it. And CPL is working with the district and a company and a team from the high school. Earl has asked for 3 things, and then he took off. We believe that we're going to get good prices, but we also believe that because of the good work and the way we keep our, I shouldn't say this is a bad word, everybody, change orders down, we're hoping to get 3 alternates into the project as well. The boiler at Cataract is ready for a repair. Lauren, I don't know if you have anything to add about the Cataract boiler.
They need to be replaced.
Worse than that is the CEC boiler, which you know, because if we do the CEC boiler, the one thing I want to make sure the board is aware of, that is not a 98% reimbursable item. That is a dollar for dollar. So if the boiler there costs $300,000, I'm making that up, we cannot apply for the 98% reimbursement on that. We'll have to take that right out of the bond, dollar for dollar. But it would be worth it. And finally, we have 2 oil tanks, one outside of here, this building, and one outside of the CEC, that we feel comfortable about removing. And again, those 2 oil tanks, the ability to remove them would be dollar for dollar moves out of this capital project. Earl tells me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say something I don't know a lot about, but maybe Tony, you can help me. You're good on boilers or oil tanks. You're an expert on oil tanks, Tony. Earl says that we have to have a telemetry check on the oil tanks. I said, okay. He tells me it's going to cost $20,000. I said, how much is it going to cost to take it out? Probably $38,000. So we're not using them. Am I representing this right, guys? So I want to see about removing them because we're not using them. We could probably, pour sand in them and keep them in there? Can you do that, Brian?
Yes, we can. Yeah, to get rid of the requirement to inspect them every year still, we could install.
Okay.
If it's not necessary, I don't see why taking out when the other alternative would be. Yeah.
I'll talk to my
Don't need telemetry, just fill them.
Yeah, well, I'll check with that, I will check on that with our site engineers and make sure we're not missing something.
The only
but-
other thing is, I mean, they're not in a location where in the future we'd be doing any, adding onto the building or any type of construction to, right? So it wouldn't interfere.
Not here. It's out in
Yeah.
front here.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
is it
that's
under-
not, so.
Is it under pavement right now? You know?
I'm not sure where the CEC
Nick,
one
it's
is.
a great question. We'll look into that because if we can do that and save some money and apply it to other things that are aidable, we'll do that. We'll get back to Mr. Laurie about that.
As long as that's a long-term solution, though.
Yeah, and I believe it is.
No, I mean, in
Because
other
the
words,
tanks have to be cleaned out, the oil has to be removed, they've got to be cleaned, and then we can infill them with sand. So we can't leave any residue. If the tank ever rusts out, that can get into the.
Yeah,
No,
you
as long as
gotta make
it's
sure
long-
the soil is not contaminated, and you might have a remediation with the
Right.
soil and everything else. So it could run into a lot of money.
Yeah, it can, correct. That's why we want to get rid of them now while we think they're in good condition and eliminate the risk in the future. But
But
I
I'm saying
will,
the backfill might be, your filling up might be.
yeah, we'll follow, because we still need to clean them out and make sure there's no risk. So we'll follow up on that. It's a great suggestion.
The other thing, he's not watching, and he's somewhere. What we can say, if we can all get along with this, is that the board wants us to go to get some play sand and have Earl fill them one day. Just keep dumping sand. That the board agreed.
Bucket by bucket.
Wes, edit the video so he can't see this. He can get buckets of play sand. I won't say Mr. Velardo said this. With a teaspoon. Let's all try that, okay? Don't tell him that. Yeah. Okay. Moving ahead, the CEC roof. The materials are here. They're on the roof. They're on their way to start. That roof will be done by the end of the school year. Remember, that payment is in this year's budget. So Grove is the union roofer. The materials are here. I think they're going to start in earnest on Monday, and they should easily be done by the end of this budget year. I say that because the money is in this year's budget. And that was bid out, and we followed all of the rules and everything. Moving ahead, the last two scopes, the Maria Massaro fire suppression system at the CEC. Brian, you need to name that for her. Tony's got a sewer, Maria's got a fire suppression system. These are the 5 rooms of fire suppression. And Bill, we're moving okay with that?
Actually, the district's using.
Go ahead.
A direct vendor on that.
Okay. All right, we didn't clear it with Maria yet, but we're going to use a direct vendor. I don't know who it is. Do you know who? I don't remember who it is.
I don't think we were told the name.
Okay.
They're on state contract.
All right. We're keeping it a secret.
Earl's got it handled.
All right. And finally, we have to, the DeFrancesco boiler at 24th Street is just holding on. We do have money in the Head Start grant through ARP, and we are also going to replace that boiler using Head Start money. So we're doing a lot of boiler work, a lot of security work, a lot of other work, and the important part, I believe, tonight was to let you see it all on one page and to do 2 things. Tell you about the bid that's out there in the impending contract for May 2nd on the Calfas through Niagara Falls High School air handling heat pumps, to talk about the playground going in, and to give you a brief update on the security, and I think we got some really good suggestions from the board on moving forward. Final call for questions for this team. Great job. Thank you very much. You're always welcome to stay. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Very good. A reference to a song, Mr. Bilson?
Yeah.
Semisonic. Very disappointing. Bilson, very disappointing.
Yeah.
Semisonic.
You don't have to go home, but you can. Isn't that Blues Brothers also
No.
at the end?
Yes, there are. Yes.
I thought Dan Aykroyd said that at the end of the.
Only at the Niagara Falls board meeting do you get that.
You get a little music education in movie theory.
Members of the board, we have our final presentation on the budget. Rebecca and Julie are briefly going to go through this. And you know that I like to give a little opening statement. So let me give my preamble, and then we'll have our outstanding young ladies tell you where we are at.
Come a long way.
Yes.
You have like pages.
No, front and back.
Better than that old Erie County red and blue budget.
Yeah, hey. Members of the viewing public, members of the board, I'm ready this evening in a resolution to present to you the 2023-24 Niagara Falls City School District budget. The number that we're proposing for the public on May 16th to vote on is $181,504,208. It is a good budget. I don't believe, but I don't know, but I don't believe that you will see a state budget on Saturday. I find it hard to believe, but you never know. Nonetheless, I am, and I think Becky and Julie would concur, I am extremely confident by talking to our legislators, government officials, that the revenues proposed for us are as solid as they can be. And with solid revenue numbers, we're able to present and do a budget despite the fact that the state won't have one. This is a good budget for a lot of reasons. It's a good budget because, once again, 9 years now the streak is at, you haven't raised the tax levy. 9 years. It's a good budget because there is no reduction in force, no reduction in people. It's a good budget because there's no reduction in programs. It's a good budget because you have been able to bring the 110 staff that have been put in the last 4 years across varying bargaining units into the budget and not have one layoff. It's a good budget because we're able to not only keep everybody, but have a bit of an expansion in a few places where we need it. It's a budget where I believe we should be able to run this school district with all of the safety, academic, social, emotional support that our kids desperately need. So I'm very comfortable, very confident in recommending this to you. Since we've last met, there are very few changes. I'll ask Julie to go through those quickly and answer any questions that you might have. Once again, we're only asking you to use one reserve fund. That is the debt service reserve fund. All of our other reserve funds remain whole and in good stead. Julie?
Thank you. So this is our final version. There's just been 2 changes since last time we presented. Those are highlighted in orange, and they're both on the appropriation side. We took a look at each of our contracts. Previously, we were estimating about 7 or 8%, but as we dug a little deeper, we realized that that number is going to come in around 4%. So there was a savings of about $200,000 there, which we put towards new building projectors. Previously, that number was $250,000, and as Ray has started looking into projectors, the cost is estimated to be higher. So we increased those two line items, but overall, we are still at the total budget number of $181,504,208.
As you know, it's a high increase year to year. It's a 7.73% increase, but don't forget that the CPI is 7.91. And we use that as a kind of a measuring stick. It does go up to 10% when you add in those ARP and CRISA people. I feel very comfortable, board, that the revenues are going to be there. The expenses are well thought out, and we're going to be able to do this budget and again serve the kids and the community in a good shape. So if there are no other questions, I'd like Julie to now show you the property tax report card, or Becky, very briefly. This has to go to all of the voters as well. Becky, can you explain that?
This actually has to be uploaded to state ed within 24 hours of your adoption of the budget. So if you approve the budget tonight,
Thanks, Julie.
this goes to the state education department tomorrow. And then it's all part of our budget book and all the correspondence that we send out to the public. These are all numbers you have been seeing all along. It's just in this format as prescribed by the state. So the left column is the current year, our operating budget at 164, 895, 787, and the proposed budget of the 181 million. That percentage change was reflected on the gap sheet. And if you go down, the proposed tax levy is staying stable. So then any other items that we're adding in, which we're not, so the total tax levy will be the 25,828,989. The next line, these numbers you saw on the tax cap calculation. So this number, the exclusions is that $2,020,085. And what that is the difference between our debt service payments and our building aid or any of the reserves that we're applying to those payments. That's an exclusion in that tax cap calculation. Without the exclusion, our tax cap would be $23,846,511. But because of those exclusions, you are able to add that together, and then we come out ahead by $37,607. So we would be able to raise the tax levy by that amount and only need a simple majority. We're choosing not to recommend that, and I don't believe it's even really been a consideration at this point, but that we would be permissible to do that. The next line is just an estimated enrollment figure for next year and our current enrollment. And again, the consumer price index is prescribed by the state for this purpose, and it's at 8%. Then down below, we show our current fund balance and reserves and our estimated. Our restricted fund balance right now stands at $27,725,175. Those items are also reflected on your gap sheets, and you have been seeing those all along. Those are the different reserve funds we have. If you notice, next year we're expecting it to be reduced by the $750,000 that we're putting toward the budget from the debt reserve. We are not using any of our fund balance. We are not requesting any use of fund balance, so that number is zero for the upcoming budget, and we did apply $250,000 in the current year budget. The next number is the unrestricted fund balance as it is right now, the 6.5 million, and what we anticipate the unrestricted fund balance number to be for us for next year. We anticipate being able to maximize that fund balance at 4%, and that would be with the difference between revenues and expenditures remaining in the current fiscal year. And that would all be determined after our external audit and financial statements were completed. But we anticipate reaching that 4% level. And that's all the information that's actually on there and that page, but you can go to the second page. And this is a breakdown of the reserves. And for the state, we have to list the reserves, our actual balance as of March 31st, and what we anticipate our balance being on June 30th. We anticipate no change because we anticipate no use of the workers' comp reserve. For when you get to the reserve for debt, we are allocating that $750,000 that's reflected in this. And then our other reserves for EBLARs, which is for our long-term liability for benefits, that we have no plan to use that. Neither do we plan to use our ERS reserve nor our TRS. So we anticipate those levels staying stable through the end of the fiscal year.
So it's a good report, members of the board, members of the public. It's a good financial report. It sets us up for the future. It helps us continue our programming, and I'm really pleased and proud to again present this to you with all those factors we mentioned, and thank our team. And if you approve the resolution in a half an hour, we will send this to the state tomorrow morning as required, and then we will publish it in our April, May Our Schools with the proper notice so that the public can see it, and there will be a public hearing on this on May 2nd.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
There are two other things I'd like to do. I'd first like to do a review of the agenda, and if there is some additional time while we have the chief here, I'd like to talk about safety before the meeting starts. But nothing has changed. There are a few small changes. If you scroll up, folks, we were scheduled to make a special presentation here this evening to a young man named Jaden Crumpler. Jaden is the New York State 126-pound wrestling champion who just competed in the national 126-pound championship, and I think he's in the top finals of it. We are going to present him a framed, his singlet framed, but being the student athlete that he is, he's visiting a college tonight and asked if we could postpone it. So we wanted to make sure Jaden gets to that college visit and gladly postpone this, and told him and his family that we will do this at the next board meeting. But we're really proud of Jaden. He's a great kid, great student, great athlete, and a champion. So we will have a framed, his singlet framed for him and his family, as well as something that will go up in our school. There are no other changes under the recommended actions. I'd like to ask Maria, recommended actions, short-term contracts. I'd like to ask Maria to come forward and spend a few minutes talking about the personnel report and the fire suppression system. Maria? Or just do the personnel report today.
Are you sure? I don't mind talking about fire suppression. So looking at, you all have the certificated report. I'm presuming it was sent in the packet. There weren't really many changes on the certificated report. There was just the addition of a regular substitute second language teacher that was to replace somebody who left us mid-year. And then the other stars that you saw on that were for Schedule B. As you moved through, we had some additions that we added as far as home teaching and some of the family and community engagement liaisons. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Other than that, as I mentioned, there were very few changes to the certificated report. All right, the classified report, there were no changes in the additional hours. I think the only changes that you saw on the classified report had to do with an additional leave of absence that we, two additional leaves that we placed on the report since the first time you saw them on the 16th, I believe it was. No questions? All right, thank you very much.
Just one, you went to a major job fair. Can you spend 1 minute on what you saw, what you didn't see, what you thought?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up too, Mr. Laurie. We went to Teacher Recruitment Day. Right. It is Western New York Teacher Recruitment Day. There were school districts from across the country there. We had school districts from Maine, California, Florida, West Virginia. There were a lot of school districts there, obviously from all over the country. There were only, when you think about how many school districts were there were only 468 teacher candidates there for all of those districts. Between Alicia Savino, the Human Resources Manager, and I, we met that day, we were there all day, we met with 35 teachers. We offered a couple of jobs to folks. They are mulling over our offers. One of the individuals that we offered a job to was a school psychologist. We were the 8th district to offer him a job on the spot. So the competition for certain content areas is extremely fierce. However, one of the things that I was really pleased about is that the teacher candidates all wanted to be, that came to interview with us, all wanted to work for us. They really did. They were young, they were energetic, and they were a great crop of new teachers coming in. There's just very few of them. So,
I recall one of the things, you made a comment about second language too to me, didn't you?
yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawyer, you're correct. So of the 400, I believe there were 468 teacher candidates that were there. Of the 468 teacher candidates, there were 3 that were certified in, it's world languages now, but second language, we think of French and Spanish when we think of that. So 3 out of 468, and that is really very small when you think about it. And so that's going to be another one of our challenges. So our challenges in staffing always lie in school psychologists, now second language or world language, and secondary special education. What was interesting is a lot of the candidates that were coming to meet with us, they asked us, you know, what do you see, what should I think of for a master's degree? And we were trying to point them in the direction. They asked the question and we pointed them in the direction. They are, this new crop of teachers and new teachers coming out of school now are extremely marketable. I think I saw Dan back there. Dan and I had a conversation about what it was like when he came and was going through Teacher Recruitment Day and how the script has completely flipped. Before it was maybe 100 districts for 4,000 teachers, and now it's totally flipped. So it's a real interesting conversation when you have it with teachers, but the good thing is they want to know what we're looking for, and they really, really, really very engaging. So we had a good day. Even though we didn't meet all of our needs, we did meet some, and we met a lot of very nice teachers. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Now, did you hire Dan, or was he? No, oh, I wanted to see where the problem started. I didn't know. It wasn't.
Esther Hamilton and Mr. O'Donnell.
Oh, good people.
Maybe, we decided new contracts, maybe Mr. Moore as well.
Okay. They made a good call. Oh, your son's there. They made a really good call. Let's go ahead, Ray. There are no changes to the short-term contracts. There are also no new additions to the resolutions. If you look at them quickly, I'm sorry, Ray. But I do want to point out that there is the budget. 605 and 604 and 605, there is the budget. And we just showed you what it was. The process from here will be a public hearing on May 2nd, and then a vote by the public on May 16th. So it is, and I am comfortable even with a state budget not passing. Judy's elections inspectors, a few contracts, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in any of these in the last 2 weeks. We had already talked about 617. Mr. Petrosi, you could table the policy for Head Start. That would be fine. There's no urgency on this. Just point out here before we conclude, the next board meeting is on a Tuesday. It's April 25th. It's the only board meeting in April. It's on a Tuesday. The reason is because you'll have your chance to vote on the BOCES budget. That's why it's on a Tuesday, and we'll fill in the agenda at that time, okay? If there aren't any other questions or changes, what I'd like to spend some time on, and it will cut short the end, I'd just give some updates. Is that satisfactory?
By all means.
Chief, would you mind coming forward for a minute?
While the chief's coming up, I'd just like to add something. That meeting on the Tuesday, that leaves the Thursday open. Mr. Laurie is being honored by the Niagara USA Chamber for his workforce development and developing the trades. He's the businessman of the year.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chief.
May 4th.
They ran out of people, Russ, obviously. They ran out of people.
You don't get free from a Thursday. You don't get free.
Chief, I got to say, Chief, yes, Chief, thanks for leading the applause.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it is. Good point, Nick.
100%.
He's on a year-to-year contract, this guy. But what, good, Nick, you're on your game tonight. Must be worried. I know why Mr. Velardo is so he's very nervous because it's the Dodgers' first baseball game tonight. That's why he's so nervous. I did want to say this, though, to you personally, Chief, and to the students of Niagara Falls High School. I think the entire community was treated last Thursday, Friday, Saturday, twice to Greece. And what a great show. I think what a great show. The high school kids, Mr. Ventry's here, they did a fantastic job. We received a lot of great feedback on the show. The kids are phenomenal. I love the diversity. I love the talent. I love just that those are our kids back on stage. And Chief, to you and your family, your son in a leading role, certainly got his talent from his mother, because I have no idea where I know you now a little better, but man, he's good, and he's a lot like your wife. So
I can sing Sandy if you'd like.
No.
No one? Not one person?
No. We got Bilson and Bass to back you up. Bilson and Bass can back you up, and they still couldn't help you. No, stop, Chief, stop. And by the way, and I know Mr. Velardo got to today, the elementary kids right now are doing Willy Wonka. So that's really, that's part of our elementary theater program, and that's really cute, and I think you had a relative in that show.
Oh, in fact, I had two.
You had two relatives?
Yeah, and I was threatened by bodily force if I didn't go. But it was a pleasure for me to attend, and the kids did a great job for the grade school kids, and it was about 45-minute show, and they really put a lot into it. It was very good.
Our kids don't only excel in athletics, they excel in music, theater, drama, everything. We have it all. I'm really proud of our students, and I thank the teachers who go above and beyond, because just like an athletic coach, you don't get that type of performance with a 1 hour rehearsal. You put in a lot of time and a lot of work. So thanks to our theater department, across the board, music teachers, art teachers who did sets, all that good stuff. To a serious topic, I just wanted to give you an update on today. I've been texting you during the day. Again, I'm tired of saying sympathies, condolences to people. It's got to stop. I don't know when it will stop. Nashville, another tragedy, and of course, we honor and pray for all of those souls. Today, across Western New York, and Brian Trott, who lives in Rochester, was telling me, he had 3 schools in Rochester, all the way into Pennsylvania and beyond, a new phenomenon called swatting. I think it's called swatting.
Yeah, that's correct.
Was happening. And swatting is to make a phone call or to send an Instagram post where they say there's an active shooter or shots are fired in a building. It's sick, it's ridiculous, it's destructive, it's harmful, and I hope these people are caught. But we dealt with that all day. It did not occur in Niagara Falls. I did make an auto dialer to the district's parents and families. I did want them to know that. We are aware of it. I will tell you, and I'll let the chief talk a little bit about it. We have our Evolve systems set up to their highest level. It does slow down entry just a bit. We have all of our cameras in operation. The chief has been excellent in getting Niagara Falls Police in and around our buildings, in addition to our resource officers. We have all systems go, and it's just so disappointing to have to deal with something like that, Chief. I just wondered if you wanted to give any update. Finally, we are doing a full-scale active shooter SWAT team drill at Niagara Falls High School on April 4th, which is next Tuesday. And I know kids aren't there, teachers aren't there for the most part, but we are going with a full drill. So if you would just update, and the board could ask you any questions, you know it better than I.
So just to touch a little on the swatting incident, so my counterpart with the Lockport School District, which was the closest one that received the call, I received a text early this morning from Chief Fossil from the police department notifying me that this was going on. Pretty early on, they realized that there was no credibility to the threat, but they still went into lockdown procedures in Lockport, and police responded. We're very lucky here in Niagara Falls, whether you know it or not, because of the multitude of police service that we have between our own police department, the sheriff's office, the state police. But what a lot of people don't realize, we were in constant contact today with the Niagara County Crime Analysis Center, which is housed right inside of the Niagara Falls Police Department. So what they do is they're constantly looking and identifying all types of threats, be it on social media or other type of avenues that they have to look at crime threat and analyze it and tell us exactly what's going on. So we were immediately in contact with our Crime Analysis Center. So we're very, very lucky to have that resource. At last count, Paul might know, there was only 9 in the entire state, and we have 1 in Niagara Falls. So we're lucky to have that, as well as there is 1 in Erie County, and they work hand in hand. So we have tremendous amounts of resources when it comes to stuff like that to identify the threat. As always, we work closely with our federal partners. If the perpetrator can be identified, and a lot of times they have a lot of resources to do that, I think they will be identified and they will be charged. So I think it's, hopefully it puts an end to it. It's just terrible. The calls were coming right to the schools. In the case of Lockport, I think they did what they had to do. They put the school in lockdown and police responded as what we would do. As far as our district, I would say we're well suited to deal with any type of threats. The thing with active shooter and school security, in my opinion, it's an ongoing process, and unfortunately we learn from every single incident. The most recent incident in Nashville, there's takeaways. The good news, and I can say, and really this is a testament to the school board and Mr. Laurie, we are really the go-by, certainly in Western New York, for school security and safety, and we are way ahead of the power curve. All the things that you guys talked about, you folks talked about earlier with the secured vestibules, Evolve, the Raptor system, security expert. If school districts are getting them, they're coming to us to see what we have. So they're a couple years behind us. So hopefully they catch up, but I think we're well suited. We're moving in the right direction. I think we have to keep our eyes on the prize and keep moving the ball forward when it comes to security, and never stop, because just, in any type of police work, it's always a moving goal. We think we have it down, and then something happens and we have to do it. I can tell you today I was at GJ Mann, and they performed a lockdown drill phenomenally. I walked the hallways myself. Within seconds, every classroom door was locked. There was no kids, no teachers in sight. It was completely quiet. They added other distractions, so so kids would be used to it. God forbid we were to ever do it for real. I can tell you, as far as the active shooter training that the police department's doing, we just did one at 79th Street School to get a grade school, so the police department could have experience going to the smaller schools. We're doing Niagara Falls High School on next Monday.
Tuesday.
And then, Tuesday. And then following that, we'll do a prep school. So they'll have experience, and as we move forward with this, we want to do a full-blown drill at either the high schools or the prep schools with students and the administrators and teachers. But again, it's an ongoing process. I'd like to say we don't need any of these things, but I think we need this and more, honestly, and I'm not saying it because my contract's due in a few months. We are way ahead of the power curve, fortunately, and it's really a testament to not only the board and the superintendent, but really our community demanding these type of changes. So I think we're well suited to handle everything, whether it's law enforcement or the school district. So if there's any questions.
I think today, excuse me, Rob, I'm sorry. Today, I think, we did the fire alarm lockdown, if you want to mention that too.
Yeah, the fire alarm just introduced another thing, and unfortunately, as we saw in Nashville, the fire alarm was going off, if you've watched the videos, which we do practice. We have practiced that at the high school with the fire alarm going off. Our concern was if the students were locked down, someone pulls a fire alarm for whatever reason, right. Do the kids think it's a fire alarm and go out in the hallway? So without any notification, because of the hard work and practices by the teachers, the administrators, and the students, they did the lockdown drill, pulled the fire alarm, and no one came out of their classrooms. It was excellent. That probably is going to happen, God forbid, if there were a real incident. Either if someone pulls the alarm, what is pretty likely, if there is some type of gunfire, the gunfire and the smoke from that could set off the fire alarm. So it is something that needs to be practiced. I know they practiced that last year at the high school. So again, I think the things that most people don't think about, I think we're thinking about, and we're moving that ball forward in terms of security.
I don't know if we can talk about it in public. Maybe it's something that's like behind the scenes, but I'm just curious, when we're doing these active shooter drills, maybe a question for Paul and for yourself, what's the response time, like by school as an example? So let's say there was an incident at 79th Street School. Is it a matter of 3 to 5 minutes that an officer would be there? Is it dependent upon when, if they have officers in that particular area? Are there some schools that we might have to focus on? Are they all the same opportunity to get there at the same time? You follow what I'm saying?
I do. I think, and Paul, jump in, all the schools, the city in general, is blanketed with police officers for obvious reasons. So I think any of the schools, the response time is minutes. There's a lot more police officers out on the road than what you see in the marked cars. So if that incident and that alarm was set off where the police department was engaged in that type of response, everyone's coming. Again, and whether I was chief of police or director of safety and security here, we're pretty lucky in Niagara Falls because of the amount. I mean, not only do we have a very large police department for our population, which a lot of people don't realize, we have a very large police department for our population because of the amount of tourists. So we're lucky in that aspect. We're lucky that we have a lot of Border Patrol agents, we have Customs and Immigrations, we have all these federal agencies because we're a border town. So we're very lucky to always pull upon those resources. I know, and I don't want to speak out of my lane, but I know the Niagara Falls Police Department works with the U.S. Marshals, and they're housed right out of the Niagara Falls Police Department. So you're talking U.S. Marshals, Border Patrol. If that alarm is pulled, everyone is coming. So I would put myself out there and say within minutes there'd be police officers. The days of waiting for a SWAT team are over. And honestly, I don't think I'm saying anything that most people don't know. If you take the extremes of what we've seen at Uvalde versus Nashville, I will bet you, my paycheck that the Niagara Falls Police Department and our local law enforcement absolutely would handle the situation appropriately like you saw in Nashville. They're suited with all the equipment, breaching tools to get in, and even when the SWAT team gets in, the amount of resources that the SWAT team has. I mean, we have Judy will tell you, she drove in it a couple of years ago, we have a Bearcat, which is basically a tank. So, and the reason why we bought it, one of the reasons, other than bridge security and a lot of the things we deal with in Niagara Falls, God forbid, if we had to make entry into any school, that vehicle is equipped, it'll push the whole front of the school in, and then we'll be having another conversation on how to fix that, okay? It has a hydraulic push bar on the front of it, you know, and when we bought it, I was chief, you could drive that right through the front door of Niagara Falls, so there's no reason, you know, that we wouldn't wait for a key. So equipment-wise, training-wise, I think we're suited, but to get back to your question, within minutes, you'd have a lot of police from all over. We also have the adjoining town of Niagara, which is right there, so anything in LaSalle, Lewiston would be right there, and I can tell you from experience when things go bad, and I think Paul will tell you, those agencies are all quick to come. Years ago during the bar craze, and we needed a lot of cops quickly, there were more cops than you could count within seconds.
And I think too, Chief, you think in LaSalle, we have an officer stationed at LaSalle Prep. At Gaskill, we have that Gaskill officer close by high school. You know, at downtown, the police department's there. I mean, so our schools are, again, not to be cavalier in any way saying it, we have good location for where our men and women are stationed, as well as the response time.
Just in the amount of SROs that we have,
Yeah.
and as well as the Officer of the Day program
Right.
that we've been doing, you know, quite frankly, we have more SROs in our district than, you know, one of our neighboring very large districts, and I don't want to name names, but we probably have the most SROs out of any district around. Mr. Laurie will tell you. So, you know, we have officers right there.
And the officer of the day is, I mean, now they're doing good things because they're now eating lunch and going into classrooms in the elementary schools, and that was a nice ad that I think you made. But we do have at least one or two every day in the school. I saw the gentleman at Hyde Park.
Every day, and we rotate them around to try to get exposure to each school as well as the kids to the officers, but depends on what's going on. If there's an issue at a school, that's where we send that officer for the day or the week.
Right. Nick, you have a question? I wanted to just jump to one other topic to close my part of this. There was obviously there was an incident Tuesday with a school bus, and there was an article in the paper today. So one of the nice things about our school bus is that the quality of the cameras, both inside and outside, have improved tremendously. So the article today referred to shots fired at a bus, didn't name a bus, but we were able to go and listen inside and outside that bus cameras, and those shots weren't fired at our bus. I don't know where that article came from. I don't know how they got that information, but I think Ed watched it as well as I did. Ed, you watched it.
Yeah, the audio was excellent on these cameras, and there was no shots fired. And there was reference to like kids were just talking, like you thought, nothing was actually done.
See,
Speculation.
there was a.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The driver just was saying stuff, and it never actually happened.
But then it gets reported in the paper, and I just want to make sure the air is clear here. We took it seriously, we responded appropriately, and then today, Mr. Ventry listened to hours of tape and watched hours of tape and sent it to me as well, and I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but I know Ventry, you did.
I did. There was a separate call about shots fired, but you have to understand with police calls, people call the police all the time. There was nothing, no incident to report. So, you know, anyone can call the police at any time and say anything, and they go and investigate it. That's what they did. And in that case, that's exactly what happened. So, but the particular case where there was an arrest made, there were no shots fired.
Go ahead, Nick.
Just want to make one comment. We're very fortunate to have you as a safety officer.
His contract,
all joking
careful
aside,
contract.
regardless of kind, you know, you probably got 3 votes, and we'll try to get you the other 2, but we'll take care of you. No, but seriously, we're very fortunate to have you with your expertise and knowledge, and keeping our children safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one more, I mean, I know the board knows that the STOP grant that Mr. Corella is working on should really enhance moving forward on the social or psychological threat assessments as well as the physical threat assessments to the physical plan of the building. So we're knee deep in that grant, and I think that'll pay big dividends to the district as well.
Since you brought it up and we have 1 minute, members of the board, I just want to mention this because the viewing public should know, and I'll ask Rick and the chief to jump in. Rick, Mike. We have a STOP grant. It's for threat assessment teams. It's also for equipment or other things that the chief and Mr. Corella think that the schools need and the teams need. We're really looking into a purchase that we found from Orchard Park. It's called the Sandy Hook Promise. And we have a meeting on the 20th of April that I'll be part of with the chief and Rick. I don't know, Rick, if you or the chief wanted to speak about it, what the Sandy Hook Promise is. I thought you gave a good definition at Evolution the other day.
Okay, it's an anonymous reporting system that is used when for students to report concerning incidents or what they think could be a concerning incident when they are not near a trusted adult. So if they're not in school and they couldn't report a concern through the normal ways, then this system works through an app or online where students can share information. And then the folks on the other end, it's a national group, they vet the concern, and if it's something that looks like it's credible and it needs an immediate response, they report it to law enforcement. If it's something that is not critical but could stand to be looked into by, let's say, school administration, then they would notify us the next day. So it's widely used in across the country, and so we've been studying it, looking at it. It's not a mandated part of our STOP grant, but it is one of the things that is recommended as an extra layer of security. It's not meant to supplant anything that we have or that we do, but it's meant to be like just something that layers on top of what we have when when a student feels like they need to report something and there's no trusted adult around to do that. So we met with, the chief and I met with Orchard Park, and they used the system there, and they gave us some very thoughtful advice about its utility and how they rolled it out, and how they prepared staff and students for it. So we're going to take another very close look at it.
No, just one more offer. If you want me to sing, I can.
Like I said, it's time for the...
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Like I said, it's time to move on, Mr. Petrozzi, don't you think? I mean,
I've
my
got
God.
chills, they're multiplying.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Jeez.
Okay,
Thank you.
colleagues, 7 o'clock. Take 5, go into the meeting. Let's go. Okay, sounds good to me. Judy, are you ready?
Judy, you ready, girl?
Okay, wait, hold on. We're good, everybody's good? Judy, you all set? Okay, please stand for the pledge to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have a prayer now by Mrs. Dunn.
Loving and gracious God, thank you for allowing us to meet today under your presence and guidance. Help us to make wise decisions we make tonight to make our district a continued success. Lord, in the midst of troubling times, we pray your healing spirit pour out in our community, our schools, and over our children, and bring about peace in the world. Let your will be done on earth and in our lives today, as we say thank you, Lord, for your continued blessings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dunn. Judy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bass.
Present.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Kinsemi.
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Here. There he is.
Mr. Capizzi.
Excused.
Mrs. Dunn. Here. Mr. Cadella.
Here.
Mr. Pareto.
Here.
Mr. Velardo.
Here.
Mr. Petrosi.
Here.
8 present.
Okay, Mr. Kinsemi, if you are to vote no on anything, please make sure I acknowledge it. Otherwise, we will assume your votes are yes. And if there's any corrections, you can make them at the end of the meeting, because it's very hard with the delay. So I'm going to assume they're yes. I'm going to assume
with your permission, I would ask that you remind the guests to please speak directly into the microphone.
I will definitely do that for sure. So, okay, so Judy, I think, did you understand what I was asking? Okay, Jimmy, do you understand?
Yes.
Beautiful, perfect. And Judy's grabbing the sheets. Oral communications, anybody on agenda items? No one on agenda items? Written communications, I do have a note of thanks from the McWilson family and the Robin Dew family, if I said that correctly. If I didn't, please, my apologies. Okay, recommended actions from the superintendent of schools. We will start with routine matters minutes from the February 23rd meeting and budget transfer number 8. Motion by Mr. Bilson, second by Mr. Kadalik. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, accepted.
Thank you. 403, we have a bid for recycling and trash removal. Motion, please. Thank you, Mr. Bilson. Mr. Cadell on the second. Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn? Yes. Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you, bid accepted.
Appreciate it. 404 and 405, we got the treasurer's report, budget status reports, which are received and filed. We'll now take 406, the personnel report, certificated, all items. Mr. Bilson, second by Mr. Velardo. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you.
very
Report
much.
accepted.
407, personnel report, classified, all items, please. Mr. Velardo on the motion, second Mr. Pareto. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you
Report
very
accepted.
much, Judy. 408 and 409 together, the reports on, from the Committee on Special Ed and Preschool Special Ed. Mr. Cordell on the motion, Mr. Villar on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, reports accepted.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Judy. 4.1, we have 4.1, we have several short-term contracts. Number 1, Father and Son Center. Number 2, Cortez Bradbury. Number 3, Windsor Learning Inc. Number 4, Reverend Gene Copeland. Number 5, Kimberly Gingrich. Number 6, African American Cultural Center. Number 7, Kim Nye. Number 8, Dr. April Sweeney. Number 9, Vanessa Norman. And number 10, Amanda Pyle. Motion for these 10 contracts, please. Mr. Cadella. Second, Mr. Pareto. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you, bids accepted.
Just a quick note for our audience. We've been working on these items all month. It seems that we're going right through them, but we have spent plenty of due diligence time on them. Number 4.1, Head Start early Head Start reports. Head Start and early Head Start reports. Mr. Velardo, thank you. I need a second, Mr. Bilson. Mr. Bass on the second, thank you. Questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, reports accepted.
Thank you, ma'am. 6.01, acceptance of funds for the Stop School Violence Program. Mr. Bilson and Mr. Cadella, any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi? Mrs. Dunn? Yes. Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Funds accepted.
Thank you. 602 and 603 we'll take together. 02 is the continuation application for the 23-24 Head Start and Early Head Start grant. And 6.03 is the acceptance of funds 23-24 Head Start and Early Head Start grant cost of living adjustments.
Move it.
Mr. Cadella and Mr. Cadella on the motion, Mr. Pareto on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you, accepted.
Thank you. 6.04, the acceptance and the approval of the real property tax report card for the 23-24 year.
Move it.
Mr. Pareto. Mr. Cadella on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi? Mrs. Dunn? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Cadella, Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you, accepted.
Appreciate it. On 6.05, Superintendent's recommended general fund budget for the 23-24 school year. As we spoke of earlier, Mr. Bass on the motion. Mr. Bilson on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi? Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the next 6.06 and 6.08. This is Judy's favorite time of the year. Election inspectors for the 23 is 606. 607 is the appointment of the alternate election inspectors, and 6.08 is the machine custodians. Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Bilson and Mr. Pareto, any questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, resolutions accepted.
Thank you again. And 6.09 is the approval of the 22-23 health service fees for non-resident, private, and parochial schools. Mr. Velardo on the motion. Mr. Pareto on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you again. 6.1 to 6.17, these are contracts we'll take together. First, 6.1, Oakfield, Alabama School. 6.11, Long Life Yoga for After School Program. 6.12 is HOG, HOL. 6.13 is the National Heritage Area. 6.14, Drescher and Mielecki. 6.15, Clark Patterson Lee. 6.16, Securities Technology Corporation. 6.17, the retainer agreement for Goldberg and Segala. And that'll take care of those 6.1 to 6.17. Motion, please.
Move.
Mr. Velardo on the motion, Mr. Pareto on the second. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you very much. 7.01, Niagara Falls City Schools District Head Start COVID-19 mitigation policy. How about a motion to table? Motion to table, Mr. Velardo. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Mr. Pareto, call the roll, please.
Mr.
This
Bass?
is the motion to table, folks.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Consemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Barretto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
And Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Item tabled.
Thank you very much. Information and reports. Mr. Laurie.
Thank you very much. First of all, to the finance staff, amazing job again, smooth, really thorough. Thank you, board members, for supporting the budget. It's a great budget. We'll be able to do good things. Our students will continue to soar, and we've given the taxpayers no increase to their levy, and we've kept our programs and are growing our programs. So thank you very much. For many of our staff and students, we're going on spring break at the conclusion of classes tomorrow. I want to wish everybody safety first, health, relaxation, and rejuvenation. I think it's coming at a really good time. For those that are working, our hours will be 8 to 4, so our buildings will close at 4 o'clock for the next 2 weeks, except for April 7th, Friday, April 7th. The entire district will be shut down, as well as that weekend. But I want to wish everybody well. When we return, and we will not have a board meeting until April 25th. Remember, April 18th, we'll be at Bond School at 6 o'clock. That's a Tuesday. Michael Williamson, the Niagara Falls Firefighters Toy Fund, our very own Dorothy Brundage, and 2 great students from Niagara Falls High School will receive recognition for their work in charity and in support of the community in the memory and likeness of Dr. King. So don't forget that. Tomorrow, the world's largest, most epic meat raffle will take place at Niagara Falls High School. And only Mr. Velardo will appreciate this. The phone calls I were getting were from a woman named Charlotte Robinson. Please call me. She is a parent at LaSalle Prep, and she is the head of this meat raffle, so I can only imagine what she's going to call and tell me, but it'll be great to have over 600 members of the community come. Now, what I want to tell you, the district parent committee has been planning this for over a year. Every single dollar they raise will be given in a distributed manner to the schools for their parent groups for extras for kids. It's for extras for kids. And they'll have a heck of a lot of fun tomorrow. And to Miss Charlotte, thank you very much. I will call you at the conclusion of the board meeting. Everything will go off smooth. Thank you for your support. And to all members of the great district parent committee, we appreciate you. I know that certain people are just dying to win those hot dogs, so it's going to be really good. Tomorrow, our students will be going to North Tonawanda to conclude their movie and the movie Till, their dialogue and dissection of that movie and conversations with each other. They will conclude their time together by going to, I guess, the game Can Jam was invented in North Tonawanda. So they're going to go there and finish the day playing Can Jam, which is a nice thing for them to do on the day before the break. So the Niagara Falls High School and North Tonawanda students will be going there, and that will wrap that up. We will be back for this, but we have 4 teams going to Dallas, Texas again, April 28th for the World Robotics Championships. Ray is going to be very busy and his team because the new phone system begins installation on Monday, correct, Ray?
Yes, sir.
We're installing a whole new phone system starting on Monday, and Ray and the team behind the scenes have done a lot of work. We'll be sure to keep you updated with that. I just want to thank the board as we pause here for just a couple of weeks for your complete support and your hard work and just your commitment. It's really a pleasure to have this board when you have to work and sometimes the days aren't easy. I commend you and I thank you. That's all we have. Mr. Petrosi, I do have one executive session item that I'll read the entire definition for at the conclusion of this.
Sure thing, Mark. Thank you. Clara. Thank you, Clara. Nick. Earl. Rob?
Thank you to Chief Del Porto. It was great to hear about your son in the play. So as a parent, along with you, with my kids in the district, I echo what Nick said. It's really pleasure and honor to have you with us and helping to protect our children. And I think that we can do a lot more, but we're doing a lot more than others. And as a parent, not just a board member, I think everybody will agree with me, we'll spend every dollar that it takes to keep the kids safe. So really was appreciative of your time tonight, and thank you and everybody involved in keeping our children safe. Hope you all have a great Easter holiday.
Russ, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy break and happy Easter, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nick. Paul? Thank you, Paul. I don't know if I should do this, Mr. Kinsemi. Don't do it. Jimmy, can you hear me? You're up.
I'd just like to wish everybody a happy Easter and enjoy the holidays and break and make it safe. And thank you for all the prayers and cards and thank you cards and gifts, and people in this community don't forget you. Remember that. Thank you.
Jimmy, you look great. You sound better, and we can't wait to have you back to aggravate us. Only kidding. Can't wait to have you back.
Don't worry.
Tony, you're up.
I caught the Grease play on Saturday night. It was pretty full. I'll tell you what, it was we're all kind of like homebodies. We all go to plays, and not just because we're on the board. I went to them before I was on the board, and I enjoyed it because I'm a big Grease fan. I enjoy that. I enjoy that stuff. I am no singer, though. That is, sorry, Mr. Del Porto, I'm no singer. But again, on a serious note, our prayers are out for folks down in Nashville and all over that were threatened and recently, today, the sick individuals that think they get whatever they enjoy off spreading terrorism. I will say this, I am very happy and proud to be part of this board. Very happy and proud that we have an excellent lawman in charge of our security at this school, and an excellent superintendent to realize what we need in this district. And like my friend Mr. Bilson said, we will spend the last dollar to keep our children safe. And on that note, happy Easter to everybody, and if you're traveling, be safe, and God bless.
Thanks, Tony, and I will be very brief. Nice budget, thank you. Thank you to the whole staff at Security and Safety. You could spend millions and millions of dollars, but it really relies on each and every person to do something and do it right. And we do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, folks, May 4th, Mr. Laurie will be honored for his workforce development and bringing the trades into our schools. The business community at the Niagara USA Chamber is recognizing Mark Laurie as Business Person of the Year. Not very often do educators are honored by the business community. So I think it's really something special. And Mark, thank you for that workforce. I know it's going to take some time, but we've already seen some results, and we're happy to see that happening. Anybody else in the back row to my right? Okay, Mr. Laurie, I know we have an executive session.
Yes,
I'll let you say why, and then I'll say who we're going to adjourn in memory of.
Thank you for your comments, and I'll talk more about the team that put that award together, not me, down the line. But thank you for your comments. We do need an executive session. There will be no voting afterwards. The executive session is for one reason. It's for pending litigation and the particular pending litigation that we'll be talking about are the Child Victims Act cases. So that's why I would ask for an executive session. And again, no action will be taken for a vote outside of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laurie. We will adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of the following people who are no longer with us. Todd Brankoff Billings, husband of Kelly Brankoff Billings. Catherine H. Sherlock Buckley, a retired teacher. William Dobbs, cousin of former board president Kevin Dobbs. Alan Leo, a retired teacher. Genevieve Maniak, mother of Chris Belak. Art McDonald, a retired assistant superintendent for curriculum. James Singleton, dear friend of Rick Ferjone. Jordan Walker, one of our own Niagara Falls High School students. Jean Zisk, mother-in-law of systems engineer Tom Riedoff. We will adjourn in the memory of those people after the executive session. Thank you, everybody, and good night. And please mark 24 minutes. Judy?
We need a first and a second for executive session.
I have a motion by Mr. Cadella. I need a second. Mr. Gallardo. Mr. Bass? Yes? Mrs. Dunn? Yes, Mr. Bilson? Yes, Mr. Villardo? Yes, Mr. Preto? And yes, Mr. Russ? And how about you? Jimmy's not going to be in, right? Jimmy won't be in executive.
Yes.
He's a yes on it.